Hi, this is Dr. Stephen Newhart with Science Based Body, and this is the Economic Fitness Podcast channel. On this channel, we are going to provide you with ways to keep your body and mind in top peak physical condition in an environment of sedentary work environments. It is our perspective that blood flow is equal to cash flow. And if you cut off the blood flow, you cut off the cash flow. We hope you enjoy our information. Hi friends, thanks for joining us again on Economic Fitness. This is going to be a great show today. We're going to hear from a top economic performer and a close friend of mine and my business partner, Bill Garner. And we're just going to go over, I guess, he's just his past, his lifestyle, and what he's done to succeed so much. He can tell us about all the enterprises he has started as we go through and the practices and lifestyles that he's kind of gravitated towards in order to do so. And that's what we really want to bring to you out there, is what we're working with to help people become or raise their level of being a top economic performer and really an economic athlete, as we like to call them. So I want to welcome Bill Garner to the show. He's been on before. We're just going to chat today, though, and really just I want to know your history, and I'm sure everybody would love to know your history and your past, and tell us everything.
Oh, everything.
Tell us everything.
Oh, wow. Like my standard interviews.
Yeah. So where did it get started? Where did it start?
Well, I always think of myself being born between the dirt and sky, the Texas Panhandle. Total almost absence of trees, a lot of beautiful wheat fields, pump jacks. I always think of it as land in total production, where you can see from horizon to horizon. So there's no limits. And for me, I guess when I think of my life, it's being able to see. Many times, I will have a pretty good feel for what's going to happen in the future, but also really believing in lack of limits. But as I've shared with you, key defining moments of my life were when I was around 4 or 5, hearing a story or reading a story about 5 or 7 Chinese brothers who were, there was an emperor trying to execute the brothers for disobeying his COVID mandates. And when they weren't in compliance, with that, he wanted to execute them by, chopping their head off or drowning them. Sure. And in that moment, as a little kid, I knew that everyone was blessed with certain gifts. And, obviously we're in a time like that where we've got some emperors that are very misguided and they've forgotten their purpose. And so we as humans are being put under stress, which is really cool because it really causes us to move beyond self. And from my experience in life, reach out to our Creator, ask for guidance, hopefully quiet down the ego and focus on our purpose and our gifts, but more so, looking at how to bring ourselves into a harmony within this incredible universe that we live in and fulfill and live our life's purpose. And as you and I were talking about preparing for this podcast, I've often reflected, why did I choose to become a human? Because I see myself as such a failure at being a human. And yet I have an incredible willingness to really learn, because I know that there's a purpose to this life, and to really engage and fulfill that purpose. So when we move on from this body, from these waves of energy, the quarks that make up this thing that we call a body, then we're prepared and engaged in that next adventure. And it's a fascinating learning lab.
So limitless. That's probably a good start to everything. When you were growing up, there was plenty of space and land and openness, and you did not see any boundaries. I think so many people grow up having boundaries already set for them. And then I can't go here, I can't go here, I can't do this, I can't do that. And all of a sudden, there it goes crumbling down. And maybe that was part of your, do you attribute that to part of your success in all the enterprises you've
I would say so, because again, I always like to comment about my first year in business. I was taking some graduate classes in behavioral psychology. I was just taking classes because my GPA wasn't high enough to make it into graduate school, and I'm sure I wouldn't have applied anyway. And I was enjoying life as a skydiving instructor, working as a waiter, and then I found myself getting married, and I had to transition. But I always think back, I'd go out and run and think about what am I going to do. I was going through interviews. Then as I was interviewing with recruiting firms, I thought, wow, I can start one of those.
Yeah.
And I'd run and think about it and visualize it. And I'd joined a bunch of ex-military guys, and they wanted to sit around and tell war stories. And I knew that I had to do one thing, generate cash flow. Yeah. And one thing I learned in behavioral psychology was get the rate up. Yeah. And so it was just like making call after call. And then when they would say, well, this company won't work with us, I knew I had a target there. And so within 6 months, I was their top producer in that office. And it was fun. And then my grandfather co-signed a note for me to start my first company of $10,000. I always think back that first year, I had an objective of making $100,000. This was 1974. And as I've shared with you, so broke, I had to sell Coke bottles, pay for lunch. I had to sell my parachutes, buy tires for my car, but we made $100,000. And so, at that moment, it just really cemented for me, knowing that whatever you're focused on, if you have a belief and a knowing, it's going to happen.
It expands, right?
Yeah. And you've got to, plus you got to do the work, you got to get the rate up. Yeah. And I was really blessed to bring in some outstanding, individuals. There was one by the name of Henry Wright. And as we were progressing, Henry said, Bill, here's what we're making an hour. Let's talk about how to make $1,000 an hour. He said, we've got, so many recruiters, so all we need to do is add this number. You go out and get the contracts, we'll bid $1,000 an hour. Sure enough, it was just right there. And, at that moment, I knew, even more so, find the right talent, find the right guys, focus on the execution, and harvest the cash flow.
What kept you so focused?
It was so fun. The feedback, it was such a joy. We were bringing in a lot of drilling engineers and knowing that we can change the economics of these oil and gas companies or oil service companies that needed to produce better downhole drilling technology, better tools. And it's just the sheer joy. And whenever we would take on a search assignment and would sign the contracts, we would, you'd have a certain belief system, but as you went through a large population of, engineers back in those days, what I believed or thought was a fact ended up not being a fact quite often. And so it was a willingness to let go and suspend belief, but just gather the data. And what allowed us to grow very rapidly as an executive search firm were our clients who would refer other clients, but other firms would come in with resumes. We came in with data. And it was always about measurables. And there was Charles Ramsey, who headed up May Petroleum at that time, really helped us in regards to building evaluation forms and helping us differentiate, because one thing I knew for sure is I knew nothing.
I think we should all have that. We should all have that kind of mentality, because if you think you know everything, all of a sudden you're done learning. Close off. Don't know. Nobody else is coming in here. One of those type things, and you limit yourself. So when you were keeping the focus on doing this, because that's obviously now you had the enjoyment of helping others, which that drives me too. So helping others, making sure that they have better lives, and sometimes that means bringing in more economics. What were you doing personally? There's got to be some personal practices that you adhere to.
Personally, well, I was, again, I had soloed, as far as flying back in 1968, but I completed my private pilots in 76, bought my first airplane, which was a tool for our company. But really, aviation, focusing on learning how to fly, how to navigate, really surrounded with a lot of great guys. There was one, Scoop Smith, he's passed away, died in a crash, but just a great guy, and really had a lot of wonderful mentors that were pilots, that were teaching me, and flying is, focus. Mm-hmm. And just the sheer joy of learning. And the thing I loved about our search practice was we were paid to learn. Every time someone would come in and say, "Hey, we want you to bring in a president of a company." Like one time it was for Noble Affiliates. Roy Butler came in and said, "Hey, we need a new president for B.F. Walker Trucking." And I said, "Roy, we don't know anything about this area, but we know how to do the research. We know how to do the work." And it was really fascinating. We went in, pulled the ICC reports. We looked at which companies were really, the top people, the top companies. And just we were paid to learn. And I guess that's what I found fascinating about being an entrepreneur. You're literally paid to learn. Some days you pay
sure.
a lot to learn. But when I look at this life, my life, I came here to learn. And learning is, I probably shouldn't say it. I love the learning more than the money.
Oh, that's good. It's a good thing, actually.
Yeah, a little obsessed with it. And like I said, when you were asking me earlier about success, I was thinking, wow, I've failed more than I could have ever dreamed. I succeeded more than I could have ever, contemplated. But, even the failure, as it's humbling, as you experience shame and humiliation and, pain, the adventure is so incredible.
But I guess failing's perception, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because
what am I? What have I done wrong? Actually,
yeah. No, well,
I didn't reach a target that I created mentally, so now I'm a failure. It's actually interesting.
Yeah, and really, it's failure from a human perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, it's really massive learning and massive success as you move from different perspectives. So
what's your health regimen?
Learning, learning.
What should people adhere to as far as keeping themselves healthy for all that encompasses the journey of becoming a business owner, operator, top performer, entrepreneur? What must you do?
There's a neuroscientist in Stanford, Andrew Huberman. You've heard me speak of him frequently. And I I've really been adopting a program and protocol that Andrew has. And I look forward to someday having him here. Sure. So, starting your day out with sunlight, really being mindful of the circadian rhythm. Yeah. Looking at how, I start my day. So I like starting my day with spiritual reading because that's primary. Everything else in the world is secondary, third, fourth, fifth. But just, thinking about what I'm grateful for, reflecting on my, wife and daughter, and, just, the blessings, thinking about my business partner and, his family and those things. And so that's literally how every one of my days starts. And then going out and getting that sunlight and on most days going out and walking for about an hour. Sure. And just bringing in it's just an hour of prayerful meditation and gratefulness.
It's cardiovascular exercise. I mean, at the end for how people relate, it's cardiovascular exercise.
And and it's really one of the best ways to get rid of fat. And if I'm doing intermittent fasting or prolonged fasting, I literally, think about the autophagy, which is the body self-cannibalizing itself. So I'm, metabolizing all the things that are going to shorten my lifespan. And since I'm focused on being here on the planet for 76 more years, and, so I can play a role in regards to my family's life, then, what are the things that I need to do? And, so it's really learning about that. It's seeing the, understanding different areas of addiction where, I have a challenge sometimes of reading the news.
Sure.
And so I'd look at that and think, wow, I'm getting these dopamine fixes from these guys at Google, and maybe that's not so good.
Oh, yeah.
And really, with an opportunity to be more mindful. And I like working the 12 steps. So quite often I'll think, okay, I'm powerless over being a human.
Yeah.
And I came to believe a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. And then turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand God. So it's really understanding those things. I never had an alcohol or drug addiction. Those weren't my drugs of choice. However, I did have a behavioral way to medicate that I found that did not serve me and serve my fellow man. And it was humbling, but just an incredible gift. I always think back to my first year of learning about that dimension of self, reading 270 books, and really learning more and more about my relationship with my fellow man and with my Creator.
And we have really dived into EEG. So everything that you're mentioning here, I believe it starts in the brain.
Absolutely.
So let's map that and let's see what we see, give the person that data so they can see, and then everything's out in the open and we can do something about it.
Yeah. I will never forget when we really, I started doing some neurofeedback back in 2000, but really didn't understand the potential of EEG, QEEG. And then when Dr. Spencer Miller and Wes Center, went through and did the analysis on our whole team, I was just blown away because I knew at that moment if our my search firm had access to EEG, QEEG, we could have seen each one of our candidates psychologically naked. We could have seen the depression, the anxiety, the way they medicated. We would have seen the lack or executive function. We would have understood why some of the individuals were better peak performers and why they were able to succeed and really achieve things in their life. So just seeing the aspect where there's not a more important data to have than knowing how your brain's functioning, what area is communicating. Do you have an overstimulated amygdala? So are you feeling anxious? And when you're feeling that anxiety, then people are medicating normally. Yeah. And with a variety, whether it's sugar or food or drugs, alcohol or television, everything to avoid life.
Right, sure.
Versus being engaged and living a purposeful life. So when we transition out of this body, you can say, yeah.
And I think we found that maybe the only coping mechanism that takes you forward in life is exercise.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the others are going to take you backwards, and that one's going to take you forwards. Longer life, healthier body composition, better quality of life as you're going. So we try to implement that. Yeah. But now we have neural feedback, TMS, all these tools that won't take you backwards and could maybe help spring your brain forward so you're in a better place to start that exercise.
Absolutely. And really, if you want to change your brain, you got to move your body. You've got to literally exercise. And the beauty of not just what I call exercise, resistance training. As you learn to engage in resistance training, everything in life is resistance. And so once you know how to do that, and just the joy of it, and the joy and the experience of going to failure, and just, there's nothing better. And when you look at the things that people who have been on the planet for a while, where they've got sarcopenia, loss of muscle mass, where they've got dystropia in regards to loss of muscle function, just like our society, dystropia. And so when you see this, why are we seeing all of this decline in our society? Lack of movement, lack of purpose, lack of focus, and just expecting people to feed them versus saying, hey, I'm an alpha warrior. I came here to serve the tribe, to help protect the tribe. How do I do that? by really working on my own stuff, being focused on, living and achieving, personal best. When we talk about personal best, it's like, okay, I'm engaging the main pipeline between myself and my creator, because my creator knows when I'm really focused and working on personal best and when I'm not, because I've got automatic feedback. Right. And it's just that pure joy.
Tell everybody about the system that we've put together for businesses.
Economic fitness. So when you look at an enterprise, and that's what I loved about my executive search practice. For a decade, I studied companies, structures, and systems. And so when quite often I was invited in, they were actually wanting feedback from me in regards to what I was seeing in regards to their enterprise and themselves. Sure. And so when we came up with this term between us where we coined it, economic fitness. Well, if you look at every enterprise, it's got a lifespan. And its lifespan is really determined by its mission and its the focus and purpose of that enterprise. And there's a great professor, really a scientist, Deming, out of MIT, who changed manufacturing in Japan. But the first thing that he did for Sony, for Honda, for Toyota, is he got them to write a really profound mission statement. Well, we as humans, each one of us need a mission statement, but every company out there needs a mission statement that's more than just saying, hey, we're going to make more profits. Yeah. It's just like, how do we serve our customers? How do we serve our community? How do we serve, how can we be of service and really render a great service? And so once you establish that, then your company has an unlimited lifetime. But then the next part is you've got to look at the participants within your enterprise. How am I living, as a CEO, as a COO, as an entrepreneur, business owner? What have I put in place, and what kind of leader am I? Am I leading from the front, or just telling people what to do, but not doing it myself? Mm-hmm. Have I become fat in my brain, which is a decline? And, so I'm not actually leading. One of the best leaders I've ever known in my life was Jerry Lindsay, lives over in Tyler. He's retired now. He was a squadron leader in Vietnam, flying helicopters. Jerry was always in the lead ship going into a hot LZ. When he led a wonderful practice over in Tyler that was a game changer, because the two hospitals in Tyler controlled the market. And he created, I think it was Tyler Integrated Physicians or something like that. But Jerry would be at the office at 6 a.m. checking patients in, because Jerry's weight training and bodybuilding, the physicians there started working out. Sure. He led by example. And to me, he is the epitome of one of the great leaders that I've observed over the decades. Charles Ramsey was an outstanding leader. It's gratifying to see those outliers, these individuals that hold themselves to a higher standard, but they also want to really see other people achieve.
So if you had an EEG back when you owned businesses, or were helping find top candidates, what would...
I would have instantly, if I was looking at 4 or 5 guys after sorted through several hundred people for a CEO, I would have, candidates are always presenting to you what they want you to see. Sure. But there's other things, they're not as inclined to always talk about their failures or, their challenges. And that would have given us a picture of, their anxiety, the different way that they cope. What was their executive function like? What was their, focus, those tools like? And that could have allowed us to really do a better job. And, companies where their leadership has that information, then they can do a better job of, fulfilling their role. But then that same tool can be used throughout the entire enterprise in regards to safety. Again, I love the example of the BP oil spill in the deep water in the Gulf. If they would have had drilling engineers on site and in charge of the project, where they had mapped everyone's brain, they would have seen the individuals who were more forward thinking, had better executive function, individuals who could function well under stress. And when everything goes wrong, who's the individual whose brain just works and it's like happy and it's like, yeah, man, I know how to deal with this because I've prepared, I've trained my entire life for this moment because I've anticipated these things. And so we would see that. So if we were mapping 1,000, drilling engineer brains, you'd change the economics within all of these, oil and gas companies and really optimize their, economics by lowering their, cost and not having as many, problems on drilling.
Well, I think there's some colleges that are starting to be progressive and are looking to map or do EEGs on everybody. If we've got them, colleges to me, they care. It's like the NCAA as far as sports go. They're always trying to make sure that student athletes stay healthy. That's on my side of the world. That's what I know. So it always seems like they care a little bit more. We've got a depression problem, especially amongst the young population. The EEG is one of the best ways to see that. So I do hear at colleges are trying to roll this out large scale, and they're going to be performing EEGs on everybody. That means it'll make its way to businesses pretty quick. Obviously, we want to help businesses stay ahead of the game and deliver it faster. I personally can't wait. We've talked a lot about vibration platforms and what a great exercise replacement it is. And I can't wait till there's rooms of vibration platforms in business settings.
Absolutely.
Much like across the street, we've got, how many 1,800 people sitting down every day. If they could get up, go exercise for however many minutes that's going to be, follow a guided class or something or a video.
Oh, absolutely. And so when you see those guys across the street, when they're experiencing fight or flight, genetically we haven't changed from 10 to 100,000 years. So I get that fight or flight moment. Oxygen to my brain drops. Cortisol spikes. What is it that I do? Well, I can't grab a spear and try to kill that predator and hide and evade it. Now it's, where I've been working on it alone and all of a sudden, I get a call and say, hey, we're not going to move ahead. Appreciate your time. And then, all of a sudden your company's up against a wall. And so in that moment, it's an incredible opportunity. Whenever we get that negative feedback, that moment, if we can be mindful, if we can if we can actually share and not feel shame, in regards to that, that stimuli, and learn how to embrace it, because that's how our brain developed. That's how we survived. Our brain developed through survival and through, challenges. But the key piece is moving our body. And the beauty of our whole body vibration is I can stand on it, I can breathe, I can, focus again and, reflect on the mission of my company, my enterprise, mission and purpose of my life, and say, thank you, God, for trusting me with this challenge. And every time you get that challenge, always saying that one prayer, thank you, God, for trusting me with this challenge, and knowing that it's a gift because we came here to learn, we came here to actually evolve. We didn't come here to, just get another trinket or, buy someone's product. That's not why we came here. We came here to learn and be of service to one another. And so in that moment, of gratitude of, hey, this was thwarted, but I really know it's an intelligent universe. I know that our Creator has created this incredible place for us to learn and evolve and just be so grateful.
Well, hey, Bill, I'm excited to work on this mission with you. This is a big deal.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing your past and your story. We also want to, just before we sign off, just briefly thank our partners, Dr. Fuji, Zeto, Applied Neuroscience, and also Wave Neuroscience for everything that you guys have done for us along the way. We greatly appreciate you. And I look forward to bringing it to everybody with you.
Absolutely.
So
I couldn't ask for a better partner.
Here we come.
Yeah. Cash flow.
Yeah.
Same as blood flow.
Sir, thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks for your time. Everybody, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode of Economic Fitness. Have a great day.